So the other day I found out that the CIA is preparing some kind of criminal referral against me, a crime report, to the Department of Justice on the basis of a supposed crime I committed. What's that crime? Well, talking to people in Iran before the war. They read my texts. So the crime under consideration apparently would be the Foreign Agent Act or something like that, acting as an agent of a foreign power.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicholas Lamar Suter, and this is In Time. With me today is Zandring. Zandring, how are you?
I am doing outstanding. It's a beautiful evening.
Nice. It's been raining a lot, but I got to tell you, there's something about I like it when it rains at night. So I don't know why. I just do. So I'm happy. Thank you all for joining us. It's good to see you all. It's been crazy, and I've noted over the last week or so my friends and other creators who are across the pond. There's been kind of a dramatic shift in their attitudes towards me, and I don't think it's deliberate. What I think it is fear. I think the U.S. is behaving so irrationally and undermining and destroying so many institutionalized systems and undermining NATO, helping Russia, which is a great threat to the EU, and undermining our allies and insulting them at the same time, which is really. So that's what I don't know. Have you noticed? Do you have many friends outside the U.S.? I mean, I've noticed a change in the temperature.
I've noticed changes in like online temperature, but I don't have any specific friends outside of the U.S. Nobody likes me.
I like. Hold
See?
on. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to. I promised.
The best I can say is they don't hate me.
We're friends. We've been friends for long enough for me to be able to say I like you and not lie about it, because I have a little jar where every time I say a lie, I gotta, so we're friends, but we live at least in the United States. So one in the chat, if you don't hate us, yeah. So a quick programming note. So downtime will be its usual Thursday, but tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, I am going to be on with Greg Terry on the Greg Terry Experience. There is a lot to talk about. We have a lot of shared interests and commonalities. My suspicion is we're going to talk a great deal about Ukraine. My suspicion is we may also talk Cuba. The U.S. There's a lot to talk about. He's a humanitarian, and Cuba is scary right now. Cuba is terrifying right now. But before we get into any of that, there is some difficult news I have to share. I think those of you who've been watching online and seeing the videos coming out of Israel about Benjamin Netanyahu already know. But it is with a heavy heart that I have to tell you that Benjamin Netanyahu is still alive. We know that a lot of people have been saying he's dead. It's been such a huge thing that he's dead that he has had to show 2 proof-of-life videos. I am not kidding. 2 proof-of-life videos that have been dropped by the Israeli government because everybody is so thinking that he was on a train that got hit and yada, yada, yada. We have no evidence that he's dead. Now, if either of those videos were AI, I would argue that that's a good indicator that he may be dead if they're putting out AI videos to try to show proof of life. One video is, what started this was he was giving a press conference, and it looked for a second like he had 6 fingers. If you look very closely, it's just a shadow under his palm. It's not, and it's been looked at by experts, and they all agree it's not AI. I've taken a look at that video, but that's what started this. It got so bad, and morale started dropping in Israel as people started assuming that maybe Netanyahu's dead. Dropping or going up, depending on who in Israel you talk to. That he ended up coming out with 2 separate videos. One is him at a coffee shop. Another one is him. Is him at basically hanging out with friends in what looks like Switzerland. I don't know how or where. This is part of the coffee shop clip. Now, people have dissected the living daylights out of this clip, and I have personally looked at every single objection that people have come up with. The 2 principal ones for this clip are, first of all, when he picks up the cup, it looks like the cup is actually overfilled with coffee, but it doesn't spill. That is a common kind of artifact that you would get in AI, where the AI knows that the coffee shouldn't spill, but it has inaccurately put the wrong amount of coffee in it. So that's the first objection. The second objection is he's married and he's got a wedding band on, and for a split second the band appears to vanish when he puts his hand in his pocket. The same phenomenon occurs in the other video where the hand seems to vanish. The other interesting thing, actually, and there was one more objection I forgot. So let me see if I can, if you look very closely at this video, it looks like you see 2 sets of hands there. So my hope is everybody can see, it looks like there's a shadow set of hands on top of the hands. So this is another one that they say is AI. It is a common artifact of AI. I have looked for other common artifacts. You can see the artifacts actually where colors remain close to the same. If you're looking at like a grassy field, something like that, the grass will get fuzzy for a split second. You can see little fuzzy artifacts. There are ways to spot AI. Now, Grok has confirmed that this is AI. Grok has actually been doing something reasonably interesting on the platform formerly known as Twitter, which is you can say, is this true? And Grok will take a look at it. And Grok has been working as a reasonably decent fact checker in a pinch on X. They asked Grok if this was fake, and Grok confirmed that this was AI, but said that it was the most advanced AI Grok had ever seen and was more advanced than any publicly known platform. That wouldn't surprise me that Mossad was capable of that. Having said that, if you actually watch the video, you will see he has got the fattest fingers I have ever seen. And his fingers are so fat, that's actually what's causing this illusion here. And it's just the way the light, you also have to realize that it's a 3D world going onto a 2D platform. Light can play tricks. Light often does play tricks. The camera adds 10 pounds. And, you have to be very careful that you're sure it's nothing else before you say it's AI. And the reality is when you see his hands, when you see them move, you realize, and when you see him hold his hand like this and when he's holding the coffee cup, his hands are, each finger is really thick, much thicker than anyone I've ever seen. So, and you see that in the other video, and that may be part of the illusion, because what happens is when he moves his hand, he actually obscures his wedding band, which is extraordinarily thin. The other thing is, at first, I was convinced these were AI. I played them. The wedding band vanishes more than once. Then I realized, for whatever reason, YouTube, which is set to auto-adjust and send me the best resolution for my internet speed, was sending me 720. So I upped it to 2114, and the wedding band is still there. The resolution of the video plays a very important part on whether you think it's AI or not, and whether or not you think that band, which looks, I mean, it's very ordinary and is very easy to mistake for human skin, especially at low resolutions. So I have spent a lot of the day going over every single claim that these videos are AI, and I can substantiate none of them. I don't think the videos are AI. I haven't seen an expert say that they're AI, and if they're not, then unfortunately, Netanyahu is just fine. I don't know if you've heard about this. I don't know if you've been on the interwebs much today.
Not today, but I did see the speculation going on.
And they're still at it, and it's a major conspiracy theory, and we've really I have taken that video apart in high definition, and the overfilled cup, that's an easy one. You can actually tell it just looks like it goes from looking concave to convex, and if you go to like any science museum or anything like that, you can see things like that. You can see the piece of paper that's black if you look at it from one angle, and white if you look at it from another, or what looks like is a cube, and then you realize it's actually inverted and it's hollow instead of being a full 3D figure, and that's the illusion that appears to be happening here. It looks to me like the way the light's hitting it makes it look like it's concave over the lip, which should spill out, when really it's convex under the light. It's not, it doesn't look to me at all like it's an actual artifact. Dunk on you, $20. Hello, Nick, been a while. Work got in the way. Well, it's always good to see you, Dunk. Thank you so much for coming back. The Trump administration in fecal menagerie, Slava, Ukraine, Heroyam Slava. We're going to talk about that and the Russia and Ukraine connection, because Ukraine has been, well, we're going to get to it. So thank you very much for that. Also gifted 5 memberships. So thank you for your gift of 5 memberships. Sinister Porpoise, $5.12. Grok also tells us which vegetables are healthiest to insert rectally. I don't want to know how you know that. You can just keep that to yourself, but I believe you, especially given this administration. So, with that said, let's go to the war in Iran, which is tied now to everything. It's tied to the EU. It's tied to Russia. It's tied to the Epstein files, because I have no doubt that that's a very large part of why this is going on, is because it's distracting people. Pam Bondi's subpoena has gone through. Her testimony is slated for, if I recall, April 16th. So that will be coming reasonably shortly. It will be closed door, which is probably a good idea. She has now given a briefing on the Epstein case to members of Congress, and is expected to give a briefing to the entire committee, so they can go off of that briefing and ask her some pointed questions. We'll see what happens. But having said that, so let's see. This is Trump yesterday. The United States of America has beaten and completely decimated Iran, both militarily, economically, and in every other way. But the countries, or 2 days ago, actually, I think this was. But the countries of the world that receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage, and we will help a lot. The U.S. will also coordinate with those countries so that everything goes quickly, smoothly, and well. This should have always been a team effort. So here he is. He's backhanded. You guys should always have been helping us from the beginning, so you can tell he's pissed. And now it will be, and will bring peace. It will bring the world together through towards harmony, security, and everlasting peace. So here he is going for the Nobel Peace Prize again. Speaking of which, he spent a good deal of today talking about late night. He was on Air Force One and being asked questions. And he talked a lot about late night talk show hosts bringing the end of democracy. Talked about why NATO doesn't need to exist. Mentioned yesterday that perhaps we shouldn't even be in Iran, which wow. That went over well with a lot of people. But he dropped this today, earlier today, and yeah, okay. So he has asked NATO to get involved in Iran, and NATO has given him a not even all that polite FU. They're actually very upset, and there's been some interviews with the commander of NATO and a few of NATO members afterwards. The United States has been informed by most of our NATO, quote, allies that they do not want to be involved with our military operation against the terrorist regime of Iran in the Middle East. This, despite the fact that almost every country strongly agreed with what we are doing, that Iran cannot in any way, shape, or form be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. I'm not surprised by their action, however, because I always considered NATO, where we spend hundreds of billions of dollars per year protecting these same countries, to be a one-way street. We will protect them, but they will do nothing for us, in particular in a time of need. Fortunately, we have decimated Iran's military. Their navy is gone. Their air force is gone. Their anti-aircraft and radar are gone. And perhaps most importantly, their leaders at virtually every level are gone, never to threaten us, our Middle Eastern allies, or the world again. Because of the fact that we have so much military success, we no longer need or desire the NATO countries' assistance. We never did. Likewise, Japan, Australia, or South Korea. In fact, speaking as President of the United States of America, by far the most powerful country in the world, we do not need the help of anyone. Thank you for your attention. This sounds like a petulant child. And as Andrew, before I ask you your thoughts on NATO, who has come out and said that the Trump administration does not understand that NATO is a defensive organization, and this was the U.S. attacked Iran. That notwithstanding, I'd also like to put up something Pete Hegseth said today, which was mind-blowing. So I'd like to remind everyone that the war ended about an hour after it started. The president made that crystal clear. A week later, I think I've got, here we go. Yeah, this is it. So, week 1, we won. Week 2, we're winning. Week 3, send help. I thought that put things pretty well. Now, Hegseth really got to the heart of the matter earlier today, in talking about the fact that we have won, and in fact, the Strait of Hormuz is open. Is open. The Strait's open. It's fake news that it's closed. The waterway is completely clear. Here is Hegseth explaining the issue.
The only thing prohibiting transit in the Straits right now is Iran shooting at shipping. It is open for transit should Iran not do that. Now, there's a...
All right. So, the only problem in the Strait of Hormuz, this is the only problem, because what people fail to recognize, there's one problem. There was an echo for that, and it's worth hearing again. So let me, because it's worth hearing correctly, boom, let me bring that up again, and let's go.
The only thing prohibiting transit in the Straits right now is Iran shooting at shipping. It is open for transit should Iran not do that. Now,
all right, so as long as Iran would be reasonable and stop shooting at ships, there's nothing wrong with the Strait. Everything's fine. All of this complaining, it's not like the Strait is physically closed. It is open. Shipping can pass through. It's just that Iran is shooting at the ships. That's the problem. Thoughts, yeah, open for targets. And this, I think it was Stephen Colbert I was watching said, because Trump came out and said, show some guts to the oil tankers. One of the oil tankers tried to get through, and the whole thing was obliterated. And it's like, okay, you're on basically the slowest ship in the ocean, filled with the most flammable cargo there is. You're going to go through one of the narrowest channels in the ocean, during the greatest hostilities in the history of that channel.
No, I don't see a problem with that.
No, I think that sounds fine, and you're completely unarmored. Meanwhile, by the way, the U.S.
And unarmed.
And unarmed. The U.S. won't send its carriers through. The U.S. isn't sending escorts through. The U.S. is telling the ships loaded with explosive fuel, you guys should have some guts and go through the damn strait. Holy shit. I'm sorry. I can't. I have to. I can't. I know no other way to express that. I know we're going to take the hit on the algorithm. I have to on that one. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's kind of sort of the definition of closing access to something, is you threaten to destroy them if they come through. It's not like you build an actual wall across it. I know Trump loves walls, and if he doesn't see a wall across the strait, then, well, they obviously are open. Why are we even there again?
Well,
it's a little disconcerting because everybody keeps telling me that it's like, oh, well, you can't have Iran having a nuclear weapon. It's like the mainstream media is lying about this, and that was why we went in. And I'm like, yes, but Iran's been like weeks away from or months away from a nuclear weapon since what, 1994?
Yeah, 94, 96, or 98, one of those, yeah.
So I still don't even, I mean, it's a mess of his own making. And, for somebody who came from the quote unquote business world of, winning at business all the time, it's like, you don't understand like risk profiles for especially insurance. It's like, yeah, of course these people aren't going to go, they're not being paid to risk live fire.
Yeah.
Or their ship being blown up, and they've got video of like two of the tankers that literally blew up, fully engulfed in fire, sinking.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, I'm not doing that either.
Well, and I mean, it takes some balls himself to sit there and tell the tankers to go through when the U.S. Navy won't. Because it's too fucking hot. It's really unbelievable, and the NATO is actually, so he's now insulting NATO. He's suggesting that the U.S. really, besides being the strongest in NATO, doesn't need NATO and shouldn't be a member of NATO. I would like to point out that there's only one country that has ever invoked the defense pact element of NATO. It's called Article 5. Do you know which country that is, Xander?
Let me see. Couldn't possibly be the very country that's now complaining about.
Yes, we are the only ones to ever invoke Article 5, the Mutual Defense Pact, where we called on member countries of NATO to come to our aid. Do you know what it was for?
Couldn't possibly have been the day that I was actually transiting the Strait of Hormuz and about 9 o'clock at evening, right, watching live on CNN as planes ran into the World Trade Center. So I believe like September 13th or 12th, they invoked it.
Yeah, it was a couple days later, but it was for September 11th. We invoked Article 5. The other nations recognized it and began dramatically increasing their intelligence sharing with us so that we could hunt down the Al-Qaeda, figure out who's responsible, figure out where they came to and they cooperated and they gave us what we needed. We're the only country to ask for NATO's help. And by the way, having a good, strong NATO helps keep Russia in check. Now, President Trump has been asked about why this has been taking so long, and he got a little defensive about it. I'd like to play for you Trump's response when being asked about why this has been taking longer than expected.
And power. Look what happened in the last 2 weeks. They weren't supposed to go after all these other countries in the Middle East. Those missiles were set to go after them. So they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked.
Oh my God. This is a draft of a letter that was sent by Iran to the UN Security Council. It was dated February 19th of 2026, so about 9 days before the attack. They said that if there was any military aggression by the U.S., they would respond both to the U.S. directly and any country that was hosting the U.S., all legitimate targets in the context of Iran's defensive response. The United States would bear full and direct responsibility for any unpredictable and uncontrolled consequences. They have repeatedly said, and they've said this for decades, that if they get attacked by the so they sent that to the Security Council. The list of countries that he just named off is a list of countries that they have said repeatedly, if they get attacked, they will attack those countries. There's a reason. Every one of those countries has a U.S. air base on it. So they have been explicitly clear. And they've been clear for the same reason that the U.S. has been clear and NATO has been. So NATO has gone to Russia and said, if you use chemical weapons, we will engage. The reason you're clear about something like that is so that you hopefully don't have to do it, so that they know the lengths you're willing to go to. They have always said they're willing to close the Strait of Hormuz, and they have always said that they will attack other countries next to them and hold liable any country that houses a U.S. military base. Why? Because those bases, if not the attacks launching directly from, are supporting those attacks. So they're legitimate military targets, and as much as I would love to see Iran the regime overthrown, and I'm all for that. It's a horrible regime. The reality is, militarily, they're not wrong, are they, Zandering?
No, they said what they were going to do.
Yeah.
And, any military bases, U.S. attacks them, and they can attack any U.S. military base and wherever it's at. And, they're not exactly going to be able to strike the U.S. itself directly, so they're going to hit all of its satellite installations. I don't know how much more clear you could be. I mean, I think there's, some of the American exceptionalism and the power of the military, there's almost that disbelief that you would dare strike, at U.S. installations, even if they are in other countries. It's like, well, nobody attacks the U.S. Be stupid. It's like, yeah, well, I mean, if you're responding to being, bombed, I guess that's about the only thing you really can do.
Well, and there's been a great clip of Trump and all the "I'm the best negotiator. I understand the economy the best. I understand taxation the best. It's a clip of all the things that he's best at over the last, say, 10, 15 years. Actually, going back even further, because you can see him from even before I'm the best businessman. I understand business better than anybody. And he always talks about how he understands war and he understands Iran better than anybody. And he said that many times too. He had no idea that they were going to do what they told the UN they're going to do, what they've told the US they're going to do, what they've announced, basically put on their website, warning to all those who attack us. We will go to, and by the way, they've been preparing defenses against just such an attack for the last 30 years. And he didn't know? This caught him off guard. This clip, I have to play it again. It is crazy enough. It's insane. They've told us because they knew that would deter an attack. That's why, by the way, when you hear people talking about how the National Security Council for the last 4 or 5 administrations have considered this the worst case scenario, where they've shut down the strait, where they're blowing up anything that goes through it, and we don't have a way to open it. The reason they war-gamed this and figured out that this was the worst-case scenario was because Iran told us that this is what they do, and that's why nobody's been stupid enough to go into Iran. Iran telling us their response plan is why nobody has invaded Iran until now.
And power. Look what happened in the last 2 weeks. they weren't supposed to go after all these other countries in the Middle East. Those missiles were set to go after them. So they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked.
They weren't.
Nobody expected that. Wait, do you not read your mail?
Well, and I love we were, Zandering, they fought back. They retaliated. What?
I mean, I am no military genius, strategist, anything, logistician,
Right.
nothing. Okay, I am not.
Okay.
And yet, even I am aware of a concept called asymmetric warfare.
Yes.
No, and generally speaking, if you are not as powerful as the force that is attacking you, it's really stupid to try and meet them head on under their engagement rules. That's a good way to just plain and simply get wiped out. You cannot stand up to them. The Taliban in Afghanistan was well aware of this. And so you engage in what's called asymmetric warfare. Asymmetric, and then the forces aren't equal. The U.S. Revolution, that was a case study in asymmetric warfare.
Yeah.
A bunch of little colonies on the continent going up against the British Empire.
Yeah.
That's very asymmetric.
Yeah.
So of course, I mean, you should have known. Somebody in the administration should have been aware of what the plan would be if you get attacked by a country with overwhelming military power. It's like you don't just directly attack back. You engage in asymmetric warfare. You're trying to survive. You're trying to make it as painful as possible for the attacking force so that they'll lose interest or heart or lose enough money on the endeavor to say, hey, this is not worth, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and pull out and leave you alone.
And
so why is this surprising? I mean, that's a really bad look for the president of the United States to go, what are they doing? They weren't supposed to do this. Nobody could have seen this coming.
They were supposed to all just die. Didn't they get the memo? And it reminds me of Vietnam, which of course is one of the go-to examples. We were killing. The kill ratio in Vietnam was 1 to 10. We were killing 10 of their guys for every one of ours. And everybody thought that was a number at which we should be able to win. It wasn't. It wasn't. Speaking of exit strategies, at least he had an exit strategy for Vietnam. He got out of that war.
Terrible one. Kind of a terrible one, but I mean, at that point, what do you do? And the sad part is it's the whole thing is tragic. And I'm glad this didn't happen. But had they just kept going the way that they were, they would have eventually won. The problem was, again, the whole point of asymmetric warfare is to demoralize your opponents, especially trying to demoralize or discourage the population, especially for something like the United States, where popular opinion is so critically important. So yeah, it's like you put enough economic hardships or a death rate, loss of personnel, etc. Eventually, especially economic pressure, because here in the United States, nothing really touches us. We're not worried about invasion, really. We're not really worried about anybody attacking us anymore. I mean, we were back in the 80s, 70s, Cold War. We were genuinely worried that Russia was going to try and wipe us out. But today, do you think is there anybody in the world that you are concerned is going to launch a direct attack against the United States?
No.
Like against the man? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I mean, it's not that it couldn't happen. There's people with the capability, but they would be quickly wiped out. No. So, the United States isn't going to play with something like that. And they would be completely justified and probably call on Article 5 of NATO to help them, annihilate whoever just did that. So it's like, in order to convince somebody or to convince the American people that you have to go and do something, they're not worried about troops in the street or their homes or their families. They're worried about the economic consequences for us living our lives here, and especially in this particular war, the economic consequences for people at home have been pretty bad. It's been a lot of negative effects that are directly affecting the people. That's one of the fastest ways. It's like, look, Iran's no danger to us, and yet what you're doing over there, has caused fuel prices to skyrocket, energy prices to skyrocket, and it hasn't even reverberated through all of the different markets yet. So that's a really smart way on Iran's part to try and disrupt America's war effort against them, is by making it economically hurt as much as possible, and get the actual American people feeling that economic impact. That would be the fastest way to end it.
Which is, by the way, and that reminds me, I do want to hit, so there's two things I want to hit before, but first, Ninjester, $5. This is an excellent point. I like this. The best way to fight Trump is to tell him exactly what you're going to do and doing it. He doesn't and can't comprehend honesty or verbose words. I've met people like that, and it's really weird. People who are inherently dishonest. And we all do projection, and projection works both ways. Typically, honest people think everybody around them's being honest, and so it's pretty easy to fool an inherently honest person. They have to learn to cope with people who are dishonest because it doesn't come naturally to them. The reverse is true. Inherently dishonest people always assume they're being lied to. And the easiest way, and I've been in situations where I've been stuck with inherently dishonest people, and I'm just like, okay, just always be honest with them, and they will never. I don't know how to outsmart them. I don't know how to outthink them. I certainly don't know how to outlie them. So just always be honest. And it works. It's amazing. And they're like, wait a minute, you did what you said you were going to do. I was like, yeah. Well, I thought that was like a fake out. I was like, no. I said I was going to. There you go. So I think it's a great observation. It works. It's actually true. It's funny, but it's also true. So there was a list of reasons why NATO is not going to. So New York Times today. Why won't Europe help Trump in Iran? Let's count the reasons. 1, they never wanted this war and don't want any part of it. Well, that's a good reason. There was no effort by the United States to assemble any sort of, quote, coalition of the willing or to make an international case for the war, as Bush did 2 decades ago with Iraq. For the first week, all Trump seemed to want was the use of military bases. Germany agreed. Britain did eventually, but not to the degree that Trump wanted. And Spain just outright said no. Trump has made no attempt to give them any operational input. They might have suggested, for example, that they might close the Strait of Hormuz, just so you know, and they might actually hit other countries, not just so you know. They're not going to play nice. This isn't golf. And the U.S. hasn't actually engaged with them, just sort of barked orders at them, and we're a little surprised that they don't answer. So the United States and Israel did not consult us before the war. There was never a joint decision regarding Iran, said the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Therefore, the question of how Germany will contribute militarily does not arise. We won't. 2, it's not NATO's job. Let's see. For 40 years, we've been protecting you, and you don't want to get involved. The NATO has replied and said that that's not how NATO works. The alliance does not traditionally involve itself in the Middle East or in preemptive strikes by members on enemies. Mr. Merz stressed on Monday that NATO was a defensive alliance, something that you would think the president of the most powerful country in the world, as he's fond of telling people, would be aware of. Clearly, Mark Rutte, the alliance's Secretary General, said that this stressed that this was a defensive alliance and told Reuters, clearly NATO is not involved here. NATO allies are providing key enabling support. 3, nobody in Europe thinks this is going to work. Shipping in the Strait of Hormuz is so perilous because even a single armed Iranian speedboat can take out an oil tanker. The U.S. Navy has not been able to defeat that threat on its own. And if the U.S. Navy can't do it, there's a lot of question as to how much help Europe really could supply in tipping the scales and forcing the strait open. And lastly, number 4, and this is an important reason, it's what got me, what reminded me, thank you, to go grab this article. If they help, it could actually prolong the war. The U.S. is more likely to leave and find a solution to this if the channel stays closed. That puts pressure on the U.S. to solve things. The U.S. should not have meddled. It should not have gone in. It's a war in the Middle East. Oh, my God. How many historical examples does Mr. Trump, nobody knows history, war, the military, or anything better than I do? How many examples does he need to ignore before he realizes you really, really, really should think about going into war in the Middle East? One of his top advisors quit today. We'll get into that. A lot of people are yay. No, the guy's a Nazi. The guy's a terrible human being, and a lot of people are coming out condemning him and saying, look, just because he did the right thing in this case, he's not going to be the standard bearer for mass people quitting. And he wrote a pretty comprehensive and good explanation as to why he could not support the Trump administration starting this war, and he resigned. Okay, he did the right thing. He is a white supremacist, fascist in all other respects. We'll get into, we'll probably skip most of, because we don't need to get into him per se. But at any rate, let's see. I interrupted myself on that, and now I've lost the thread. That's why Europe isn't going to help. They want to see an end to this, and they think that it's more likely to end quicker if the U.S. is stuck doing it on its own. Trump isn't going to want to eat crow, but on the flip side, he's going to be forced to if no other European nation enters.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, they're suffering along with us, because their energy costs are going to go up too. I mean, oil is a global market, energy is a global market. But if you want something to end quickly, the best way to do it is to make the U.S. feel the brunt of its decisions, get its population, a little angered and outraged about what they're paying now because of the actions and decisions made by the administration, to bring public pressure to make it stop. So that probably would be. I mean, the more aid that they offer, say, oh, well, maybe if we just give them what they want, they can get it over with quicker, except that we see how that worked in Afghanistan. So people are probably going, we don't want nothing to do with this. We don't want our hands on this. We don't want to bear any of the responsibility for this. It's probably their best option to try and end it as quickly as possible.
And this is why they're pissed at us, because he's insulting them. He goes, I need you guys. You guys should have been here from the beginning, but you've got an opportunity to come now. We'll help. We'll be a big help to you because you're too stupid to do it by yourselves, but we would like you to come. Oh, you're not going to come? Well, that's fine. We don't need you. We're the biggest, most powerful country in the world. Go screw yourselves. You're going to do all the benefit of this once they're disarmed, which they had done. That was the video we did. Obama did it better. Obama got them to agree to disarm, and Trump even negotiated a better deal. I'm going to give Trump credit. He negotiated a better deal than Obama had. They were going to give up the excess uranium. That deal was negotiated the day before he did the strike. I mean, talk about pulling defeat from the jaws of victory. He had this. Venezuela
went to his head.
Yeah. Venezuela. I think you're right. Venezuela was so easy. We are going to have to also get to Cuba because Cuba is falling apart. Before we do, this is breaking. Representative Summer Lee has introduced articles of impeachment against Attorney General Pam Bondi, who we mentioned earlier. She's been subpoenaed now. She's going to appear on, I believe it's April 16th before the Oversight Committee. It's her first appearance before specifically that committee. She's appeared before the judiciary and she's appeared before a couple other committees, but this is going to be closed door. I think one of the reasons they're doing closed door is they want to stop her showboating. They probably won't succeed, but they may get some better answers out of her if it's closed door. She is going to be briefing them ahead of time. The chairman of the committee wanted just the briefings, but fortunately there are enough Republicans on that committee who are with the oversight Democrats that they were able to force the issue and get the subpoena. So she's been subpoenaed. She will be showing up April 16th, I believe. And as of today, she has now got articles of impeachment against her, joining Kristi Noem, who has articles of impeachment against her. Those articles of impeachment are probably going to die on the floor, and the reason isn't because nobody's going to bring them to a vote, but because she's already been essentially fired and relocated to a cushy, non-existent job. So as long as she keeps her mouth shut, which she has a real hard time doing, she's probably got that job as long as the administration lasts, and what they're doing now is paying her to keep her mouth shut. She's part of the shield of the Americas. Okay, good. So that's it. Representative Summer Lee introduced his articles of impeachment against Attorney General Pam Bondi. That just dropped. So we will see. Pam Bondi, she can't incriminate Trump because she was his defense attorney. So she can't operate. And even after she's no longer his defense attorney, she can't operate against his interests because there's no way to guarantee that she would not use privileged information. So by putting her in the position that she's in now, and the number two, so she was Trump's defense attorney for his defense against the impeachment, I believe, if I recall correctly. So she can't ever work in any capacity against his interests in the future. She doesn't have to work for him again. She doesn't have to take other jobs. And if he doesn't pay her, she doesn't, but she can't actually work against him because there's a conflict of interest forever for the rest of her natural life, even if she's not an attorney anymore because the privilege belongs to him. Even after he dies, she can't do it. The assistant attorney general was his defense attorney in the case in New York. So that's two defense attorneys at the top two who have a huge conflict of interest with the sitting president. And their job of being impartial. They can't be legally. So we'll see how that goes. All right. So, I just got a DM from Greg Terry. A reminder to those of you, I'm going to be on Greg Terry's tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a lot of fun. We are probably going to talk about a number of things, but let's talk about one of the things that's taking a bit of a turn here. So the Russian economy was declared yesterday as entering the death zone. The death zone is actually a technical term. It's a term used in climbing. It's any altitude over 8,000 meters. Usually they refer to that as about 26,000 feet. The height of Everest is over that. There are 8 mountains, I think, that are over that height. What happens when you get over that height? They call it the death zone because while you don't die immediately, your body is dying. You've reached a state of what's called negative equilibrium. Your equilibrium is no longer sufficient to sustain life. You are slowly dying. The average life expectancy at the base of the dead zone, which is I think Camp 3, is 2 weeks. What happens is your body is now starting to consume muscle mass faster than it can rebuild it. So you're getting weaker. Your brain is not getting enough oxygen. Eventually you'll get a hematoma. Any number of things could kill you. Most people, the average human being, can survive about 2 weeks at the base of the death zone where you first get into it. So the definition of that, again, is your body is essentially consuming itself to survive. And once it's done, once it's got no more of those, and it doesn't matter how much nutrients you eat, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's essentially the lack of oxygen. The oxygen's so thin. You can survive up there if you have oxygen. You need some form of artificial support to survive there. The Economist the day before declared, it was yesterday. What do you know? That Russia's economy has entered the death zone. Its economy is in a negative state of equilibrium, and they actually used the muscle mass analogy, and what they said was it is feeding off of itself so much, and this includes what we had mentioned earlier. They're selling off all of their gold reserves. They're selling off they're literally, they have to fire employees. And one of the biggest problems is with the latest round of sanctions, they have oil that's in the ocean, but they can't deliver it anywhere. And what's happening now is they have such a backlog of oil that they've refined that they've filled all the refineries, and all of the land containers that can hold oil are full. They can't refine anymore because they can't sell what they've got. And their economy is in the worst condition it's been in about 20 years. If something doesn't come to help it, the economy will collapse completely before the end of the year. It's just a matter of time. It has reached a state of negative equilibrium. Enter Donald Trump. Now, I think this is a little hyperbolic, but I think it brings up a question that is important enough to be worth discussing. So we're going to play, what's his name? Adam Kinzinger, the former Republican congressman from the January 6th committee, and his opinion on what Trump has done, which is he has said that he is going to give a 30-day waiver to Russia where they can sell oil. Now, that alone is worth $8 to $12 billion to them almost immediately, because the oil's already out in the sea and they can go sell it. Then they can resupply and start to get their own oil flowing again. They can start putting their people back to work, because the people can't work at the refineries because they can't refine oil, because while they've got enough crude, they've got nowhere to send it once it's refined. They're completely backed up. So the entire economy is stalling. It's not dead, but it's stalling, and it's in stagflation, but worth it's the dead zone of economies. This is huge, because while he said he's giving them 30 days, I have never seen Trump be reliable on anything. In 30 days, if this war is still continuing and if the price of oil is still going up, which I expect it will be, even with Russia's help, and that's weird. Sorry, I felt a lump in my throat when I said that. Why would he leave it at 30 days? He'll extend it as long as, and they are right back in it. They are this close to getting knocked out completely knocked out. Ukraine gets all of its land back, including Crimea. This close. This is the goal that they have bled and starved and froze and killed and died for 4 years. And Trump just gave them a 30-day extension, which by itself, $12 billion, which to Russia is a huge amount. It's a huge shot in the arm. This is Adam Kinzinger.
In the world? What in the world?
Oh, I had it. It looks like I don't. It looks like for whatever reason the video is not showing up, but I think you guys can hear the audio. So let's hear what he has to say.
Does Iran or does Russia have on Donald Trump? Now, Donald Trump, to reward Russia for our stupid act, has allowed India to buy oil again from Russia. That was a big victory when we stopped that. Now they're doing it. So they say for 30 days. I don't imagine that is not going to be waived again. And then all the oil that Russia had stuck on the high seas, they're now allowed to sell it. This is a boon for Russia. $150 million a day they're getting. In addition, because of increased oil prices, now take into account the oil that's been sitting on the high seas that now they'll be able to sell. You are funding the enemy of Ukraine. Russia is helping the enemy of the United States, Iran, to target American troops, and Donald Trump is rewarding Russia. I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. What in the world does Iran or does Russia have on Donald Trump? Because whatever it is, it's got to be exciting because he will not turn against them for anything.
So I think that's an excellent point because that we know that they've been giving intelligence to Iran. They've been giving them intelligence as to where our ships are. That's why we can't sneak into the through the strait, is because basically up-to-date satellite imagery, the most advanced intelligence that Russia has to offer, is going straight to Iran. Now, a couple weeks ago, we had someone suggest, like, well, isn't that actionable? Doesn't that mean we're at war with Russia? No, because we've basically been doing the same thing with Ukraine. We've been giving Ukraine all the intelligence we have. Russia knows it. Russia's saber-rattled over it. But really, they can't do anything about it so long as we're not actually doing the fighting. So, and we've given them our weapons and so on and so forth. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. They apparently are also sending them some drones. How many, I don't know. It's kind of ironic that Russia learned how to make a Shaheed from Iran and is now sending Russian-made Shaheeds to Iran to launch at Americans. But nonetheless, right now, Americans are being shot at, killed by a country we shouldn't be fighting, but we are. We can't change that. And that country is being assisted by Russia, and Trump is going to give Russia this waiver. Why is he doing it? The midterms. The midterms are coming up. He doesn't want high oil prices. He's so caught up on the midterms. We'll play another clip for you about that. But it's the midterms and or blackmail, which we've talked about before. Xander, what are your thoughts on the 30-day waiver allowing Russia to sell oil, which is at this point going to resurrect? And it's been the U.S. goal, by the way. The U.S. goal since the fall of the Soviet Union. We are within months of that goal, and he's throwing them a lifeline. What are your thoughts?
I think that he's probably doing that specifically for energy prices. You know, he's screwed up some stuff with the energy markets, and he's probably looking for a way out. And he doesn't actually probably give a shit whether Russia collapses or not. He only cares about his own hide, and possibly blackmail. I mean, I guess that's always a possibility. The only thing that would worry me about the total implosion, especially economically, of Russia is there comes a point where they're staring the end pretty much right in the face, and they're like, what do we have left to lose? We have to wrap some things up now. We can't keep going. We're about to collapse. There's very little strictures on what they may be willing to try and do to save themselves. It's the only thing that would concern me about that is, you try not to back, especially nuclear armed powers, into a corner where they have nowhere left to go.
Well, I completely agree, and I'm glad you brought it up. I think you and I would both agree that Trump's not savvy enough to make that. That's what he's done in Iran. What he's done in Iran is he's told them all, we're going to keep killing your leaders until your leaders are all gone. And they're like, oh, well, in that case, we're just going to keep fighting until either you've killed all of us or you leave. A misunderstanding.
Once you've told an enemy that there's no quarter, there's no nothing.
Yes.
We're going to keep doing this and until you're just all dead. Well, that kind of takes away any semblance of self-preservation, doesn't it? Nothing's off the table at that point because you've got nothing left to lose. And doing it to Iran, while stupid, because of again, they can cause a heck of a lot of mayhem through the energy markets for all of the world, not just us. But at least they're not nuclear armed.
Yep. Oh, let's see. Lieutenant Colombo has something to say. I know many of you may not know who he is, but for those of you who do, Lieutenant Colombo wanted to ask this. Just one more thing, President Trump. Why do you need those ships to help you in a war you say you won last week? That's, I don't know. I found that amusing. All right. This is, let's see. This is Donald Trump. Oh my God. I think this was today. And this is, he's an idiot. I'm tired of trying to find polite ways around and trying to be, here's Donald Trump with House Speaker Johnson at a press event today. I believe this was today. May have the date. I think so. Oh yeah, the Kennedy Center. They've approved the closing of the Kennedy Center, and here we go.
We had one man who was very ill. It looked like he wasn't going to make it. I don't know. I won't mention his name. Should I? Do other people know his name? Do you want to mention it? He'll be proud. Go ahead. Tell him the story.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. President. Congressman Neil Dunn of Florida had some real health challenges, and it was very serious, and had a pretty grim diagnosis. And I mentioned it to the president, and I said, Congressman Dunn is a real champion and a patriot because he's still coming to work. And if others got this diagnosis, they would be apt to go home and retire. And
what was the diagnosis?
It was, I think it was a terminal diagnosis.
He would be dead by June.
Okay, that wasn't public, but yeah, okay, that's. It was grim. That's what I was going to say. I don't think
with a heart problem, by the way. This was a heart problem.
Right.
And there goes HIPAA.
Long story short, the president called him to encourage him and thank him, and they had a conversation, and the president mentioned in the course of the conversation, you know how to get my doctors involved, and they did, and within a number of hours, they took him to Walter Reed, emergency surgery. The man has a new lease on life. He acts like he's 30 years younger, and he walked into the conference meeting, and we thought we'd seen a ghost, and I spoke with him over the weekend, and he's encouraged and thankful, and he thanks the president for his leadership and intervention, and thank you.
He actually called, Mike called me and he said, sir, we're up by 3, but we're going to lose 1 by June. I said, who? Neil Dunn. He's a great congressman. Incredible. He called to say that he was terminal, really bad heart. There's nothing they can do. I said, that's bad. Number 1, it was bad because I liked him. Number 2, it was bad because I needed his vote.
The number 1 was the throwaway, by the way. The number 1, because he knew he couldn't just say the number 2. But it's
oh my God.
This guy was going to...
I don't believe that was public, but I mean...
Yeah. And he goes...
I say grim.
The whole conversation started, we're up by 3, which means that they have 3 Republicans over Democrats, but it's going to be 2 soon. And he decides, not because he even likes the guy, he decides... because they need the votes, and he knows that if he loses the House, his agenda comes to a grinding halt. And we've talked about how and why. That's another thing. But if he loses the House, if he loses all of Congress, that would be awesome. But if he loses the House, his agenda's done. And there's going to be problems. But it's better than the problems we got now. So at any rate, so he said, oh, we're up by 3. Soon it's only going to be 2. Why? Because somebody's going to die. Well, let's have my doctors look at him. So they send him to Walter Reed. He wouldn't have done it if the guy was a Democrat. I mean, he's sending members of Congress to Walter Reed to push them up on the heart transplant donor line so that he can keep Republicans and keep Republican control of the House. And yeah, how many HIPAA violations?
Yeah, I was just about to say. So yeah, not only is this kind of an incredibly questionable, moral thing to do, but then to just start spouting off, about somebody's, medical issues and. Putting out non-public information just willy-nilly. This is the person who has access to, like, the nuclear codes.
Well, he tried to give the nuclear football, like a 12 or 14-year-old kid. He was just like, here, you want to take a look? Let's see what this does. It's like, oh, my God. And I remember
that was particularly bad. I was not. I mean, I've seen some like really stupid things that Trump said, and you're just like shaking your head, going, "Oh my God, what? This guy can't be for real." That takes the cake. How? I don't know. I do not know how I missed that with some of the left-leaning people that I follow. That I did not see that, and I'm like, "Oh my God."
Oh no, that was a day. That was a good day for news, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a thing that happened.
Yeah, the president's showing the launch codes to a 12-year-old boy. hey, you want to nuke Iran? Believe me, they deserve it. Okay, not now. We'll get them in 4 years. So, yeah, well, that and so I forget what it is, but there's the drug that you take for weight loss. And he lowered the price on it. And the price on it is something like $800 a month or something like that. And not the $5,000 a month for AIDS the AIDS stuff that he's willing to let that go up. But the weight loss is important because weight loss affects cis white males more than AIDS does. So we'll work on the AIDS drugs. Work on the weight loss drugs. It's actually, and I make fun, it's actually revolutionized diabetes control and a bunch of other things. There are serious health possible associated with, long story, but he got drug companies to lower the prices on it, at least temporarily. And so he starts reading a list of who in his administration's on it. So he's like, oh, this is an important drug. Let's see who's on it. And he starts reading, he goes, oh, you're on it. You're on it. Mike, you're on it. He goes, a lot of people are taking this. And he's just reading a list. And half of them are in a semicircle around him, and they are so uncomfortable. But none of them wants to stop him and be like, dude, do you mind not telling people what medications I'm on national fucking television? Oh, my God. Oh.
This guy has like no. If he thinks that it's gonna, in his brain, play out great to be able to, he just drops information that should not be dropped at all, and he doesn't give a shit. He clearly doesn't care.
Yeah, he's got no.
Even after Johnson is like, well, that wasn't public information. And the guy doesn't. He just keeps right on going. Yeah. Like he was completely clueless about that kind of, little jibe of shut up. It's like even I could hear that in Johnson's voice. Like, dude, shut up.
Oh, you could tell as soon as he goes, well, it was what condition? He's setting him up for a softball. Trump clearly knew the condition. He goes, well, what was the diagnosis? He goes, well, it was grave. So you could tell he doesn't want to say. And then Trump's like, it was 6 months. He'd be dead in 6 months. It's like, yeah, that was not public. But the Energy Secretary of the United States does care. He is a concerned individual. We've got him now. Let's see. He was asked about the economy, and let's see what he has to say.
But the fact is that the U.S. economy is fundamentally sound, and that if it were to be extended, it wouldn't really disrupt the U.S. economy very much at all. It would hurt consumers, and we'd have to think about, if that continued, what we would have to do about that. But that's like really the last of our concerns right now, because we're very confident that this thing is going ahead of schedule.
That's the last of our concerns right now. Do you have any idea why, after overthrowing a tyrannical, or what they viewed as a tyrannical government, the founders of the U.S. and the framers of the Constitution, do you know why they even bothered to make a government at all?
Why?
Well, because government needs to be in place to do some certain things and to maintain an equilibrium between all of its citizens and to serve the people.
Yeah.
That's where they all came up with. Yeah, that's where they came up with the whole a government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Are consumers people?
But the last time I checked.
Okay. Oh, I am learning so much today. Okay, so
They're the last thing on our mind.
yeah, the Secretary of Energy, the last thing on his mind is the consumer. It's like, the war's not going to continue. It's not a problem. If it does, we'll cross that bridge. That's essentially what he says. He's like, we'll figure it out later. We have to. Oh my God.
Okay, yeah, it might hurt the consumer, but it's the least of our concerns because look at how fundamentally strong this economy is. Maybe go out and talk to like real people that have to live in like the normal world that isn't in a place of privilege. Maybe you should do that instead of looking at a bunch of pie charts and deciding, hey, everything is swell and hunky-dory. We don't need to worry about these pesky things called consumers. It's not like they make up the electorate of our country or anything. That we even care about them because, hey, they're the peons. And of course, government is in it for ourselves, not for the people.
There was a great
you don't
comment.
Hate the government enough.
There was a great comment in the because I found this on X, and there was a great comment where he just said, he's literally saying, it doesn't affect me, so I don't give a fuck. And I was just like, yes, that's actually correct. That's not hyperbole. That's what he's saying. If enough consumers start getting upset that someone asks me to do my job, then I'm going to worry about it. That's what he. Damn. So. The war so far has cost, and what I brought up here is the math can and can't afford healthcare for Americans, children's cancer research, SNAP, WIC benefits, special education programs. We can afford the National Guard takeover. Christine, and by the way, as we've said before, and every study has shown this, Obama deported more people, and of those people, the vast majority had committed felonies or some significant crime other than just being in the country without having gone through the process, as opposed to the goon squad and what they did, which was just find anybody they could, including people who were actually going through the process and just deporting them. So Obama did it better and actually deported more people, but they were actually the dangerous ones. Having said that, so let's take a look at all of those things that he's spent now. What he spent on the war has now gone up to about $32 billion. $32 billion is what the war is at, estimated right now today. That number is going to start to go up because they're having significant problems, especially on the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier. That carrier has now, as you had pointed out previously, it's got the deployment is supposed to be about 6 months. It's well past that deployment. It's on its way towards breaking the record deployment, which is 322 days for an aircraft carrier deployed to Vietnam. The problem is things start to break down pretty quickly on those aircraft carriers. They had a fire. Well, we don't know when they had it. We learned about it yesterday and going into this morning. The fire lasted 30 hours. It took them 30 hours to put out. The fire was in the laundry and in some of the sleeping areas. They lost 600 beds. So people are now having to sleep on tables or just wherever they can find because 600 beds have been destroyed in a fire. Now, a fire aboard a ship is phenomenally fucking serious. We've talked about that before as well. But having said that, if a fire started on this aircraft carrier, which is already well overdue for maintenance, that sounds like that may also end up making things a little more costly in the future. I don't know how that ship is. What's your assessment of that?
Oh, well, the longer it goes on, the more things are going to break down, things that you need to shut entire systems down in order to address. It's like people are like, well, aren't ships supposed to be self-sufficient? Kinda. If they absolutely had to be. But there's a lot of systems that need maintenance, and you have to shut down a large amount of stuff to make it safe in order to do a lot of maintenance on those things. That's why we have downtime. And not our show, actual downtime for ships. They go into into repair and maintenance, and they often, like for the Sacramento commissioned in '64. It was a pretty old ship. We had to do a lot of stuff, and there were some delayed maintenance items that we had to write up. And then once we got off of deployment, there's a bit of a downtime for the the crew to go on vacation, essentially on leave, liberty.
Yep.
And then we start into our maintenance cycle, where we went over to Todd Shipyard in Seattle, and we started addressing issues that we couldn't address while underway. Because a lot of times you'll have to completely shut down the boilers. Well, you don't do that when you're out in the middle of the damn ocean. And there's some really retarded. There's some really bad systems on ships that don't make sense, and some of them are carryovers where they're trying to save money. There's I can't remember if it's the Spruance class destroyer. There's no backup to the start system for the gas turbine engines. It's a high pressure starter system, and if you run out of air pressure, you're kind of screwed. You have one shot to restart the engines. So there are some very poorly designed, I hate to say poorly designed, probably edges cut, because these things are really expensive. So maintenance on them is very important. And going into your maintenance cycles, that's why they have them. And the fact that they're just sending an aircraft carrier all over the place willy-nilly, they're going to start having other issues that are going to spider from those, because they can't shut down properly to do the maintenance that's required or some of the repairs that may be required. Any new ship is going to have some issues. They go through sea trials. There's a long workup period, and in each cycle, it has those periods as well. You go into maintenance period, you go through and you fix a bunch of stuff. You try and get into the facilities that allow you to do it quickly and efficiently. And once you get all that done, you have to go do all of these exercises, all of these workups, because you have to test all of those systems to find out and make sure that they're all functioning properly together. So running a ship ragged like that is not good. Plus, it's horrible for crew morale. So, you sit on a ship like that, an aircraft carrier is like a floating city. Those things are big. But very quickly, when you have 6,000, well, I guess it's the Gerald R. Ford is probably supposed to have fewer people. They automated a lot more systems. So yeah, they cut a lot of the crew down. I was actually on the USS Carl Vinson, and wandered around that aircraft carrier, and there was 6,000 people on that, including the air wing. The air wing gets temporarily attached to the aircraft carrier. They don't actually live there all of the time, only when the ship is deployed. And then they bring all of their aviation equipment, their personnel, everything comes aboard. Otherwise, the aircraft carriers can almost seem abandoned when you're wandering around them without the air crews on them, because it's designed to hold all of those people. But when all you can do is go 1,400 feet, and that's diagonally across the ship, and that's all the farther you can go, and it's the same things over and over every single day. You can't go out into town. You can't just go for a drive. You can't get away from people. Yeah. It's very stressful. So yeah, it's trying to run these ships like this in these extended cycles is going to cost a lot of money, and these are not cheap.
Well, and this is the same ship too that has the problems with the toilet systems, and enough of the toilets are broken that it's a 4-hour wait for servicemen to use toilets, and it we don't usually think about it. It's funny that somebody was mentioning where's the toilet on Star Trek. We don't think about, but if you're on a ship, that's a basic human need. We think about the food. You also need to have toilets, and if they're not working, you have an extraordinarily serious problem aboard the ship. And in order for them to do maintenance on the toilet, they need to shut down that system, but they can't shut down that system because thousands of people are relying on it. But apparently on the Ford, it uses one suction tube for every single toilet. It all goes through one tube. So in order to do repairs, you either have to repair it hot, which is not something anybody wants to do, or you shut it down, which means no toilet on the entire ship is working, which is okay if you're in a maintenance cycle and not okay if you're in a war. So the Gerald R. Ford is starting to see what could put, I mean, if all the toilets fail, that's actually, I would imagine that's a crippling problem for a ship. I don't know how it's going to function after that. But
yeah, you don't think something like, oh, well, the toilet's not a super critical system, in a warfighting naval vessel, except until you realize 4,000 people have to poop somewhere, and remember they're eating Navy food. Yeah, that creates an incredibly unsanitary. How many people died from why the heck did I just
dysentery?
Yeah, dysentery. Yeah, it's like that was like the number one thing that killed people on the Oregon Trail. You have died of dysentery,
and kill people before there was modern septic and sewage control on ships too.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's an extraordinarily serious problem.
Yeah, that's my understanding when I read the article. I found that hard to believe as well. It's an older aircraft carrier, and the problem is, again, they didn't, either the cost or redundancy, whatever, and you need a very particular kind of suction vacuum. It's like an airplane thing, apparently, and they just have one. The Ford's
a new aircraft carrier, and they probably did it again for... They did it probably for efficiency of space and maintenance if you're on an actual correct maintenance schedule. Like I said, there's some interesting design choices that they use because everything's a trade-off. You have very limited space. You have to try and cram all of this different kind of equipment, and you have to be able to support this many people in this much space, and it can be difficult. And you can't really run a whole bunch of stuff. Plus, cost is an issue because remember, the DoD in accepting contracts for shipbuilders, well, usually, not always, but usually one of the lower bids is the ones that make it because hey, we're going to build 6 of these things. And when you're talking, hey, they're $100 billion a piece. I didn't look up the cost of what a modern aircraft carrier actually costs to build these days, but they're not cheap. And so, somebody says, hey, we can shave this system here and this system here, especially because there hasn't been significant damage to an aircraft carrier since I believe the USS Forrestal. So, we have decades of operating ships, without having to worry too much about redundant systems. It's like we can just pop in someplace and get it fixed if we have to, or we shut it down and get it fixed. It's not, we haven't been in an actual war situation where dealing with actual battle damage. You would think that all of the systems would be redundant, and they have things on the ship called like sound-powered telephones. Actually, not like, they are sound-powered telephones, specifically because, in the case of battle damage, electricity may go down and you still need to be able to communicate with your engine room. And when you're 792 feet, 9 inches away, it's kind of hard to do. And yet, some of the decisions that have been made for some of these systems seem ludicrous, and not the singer.
Yeah. Well, given.
Not that I'm passionate about that at all. Having lived on a ship for years.
That's why I was very glad as I was going over the rundown of what we were going to talk about today. I was just like, well, I'm glad we've got someone who knows his shit about this stuff because I make this up as I go along. So the total cost of the war right now is about $32 billion. $42 billion is what the USAID program cost the U.S. in the year before it was shut down, $42 billion. So we will actually, by the end of this week, hit the same mark in terms of spending that the USAID program was. The difference was that the USAID program was saving lives, and it was also, we were getting a lot of goodwill from other countries that were willing to help us share intelligence with us, so on and so forth, all of which we are losing. The U.S. has considered withholding HIV/AIDS aid unless Zambia expands mineral access to that. I want to make a couple things clear about that article. This is a memo that was written to Marco Rubio, suggesting that we had a lot of control over Zambia. Zambia has at least I think it was like a $8 billion contract with China. No, actually, I'm sorry, because they didn't have the exact details of that, but it was the figure in terms of what it would cost, what the U.S. could get for the minerals, including cobalt, lithium, and copper, which they are giving mostly to China. Meanwhile, we are giving them medications to help stop the spread of HIV/AIDS and preventing a humanitarian crisis there. This memo given to Rubio said we have a tremendous amount of leverage over them, tell them that they're going to stop working with China and start working with us, and they're going to, and we'll pay full price. But they're going to, or a discounted price, but we're going to start, they're going to start working with us, and we're going to be the sole beneficiaries of all of those metals, and they're going to have to tell China to go screw, or else we are going to severely limit the program. Now, whether or not Marco Rubio has decided to act on that, we don't know. We do know that the program has been cut already by more than half, meaning that in the governmental cuts that Trump has been making, they will be receiving half of what was already insufficient to stop the spread of AIDS. It was just bandaging the hemorrhaging. That is, right now, U.S. policy has not officially changed. Nobody knows what Marco Rubio did with that memo. We know that even before the memo was written, we had cut some of the aid that we were giving to that country. So, in fact, actually, let's see. Yep, they're one of the world's largest copper producers, reserve minerals like lithium and cobalt, all of which are key in a green energy transmission. The United States gives them, and one of the deals that we've had with them is that we will give them $1 billion in health funding over 5 years if they commit $340 in new health spending themselves. But it looks like we are cutting that assistance back, and we have not signed yet for the next cycle. And let's see, I think, I don't know, I'm going to have to, we haven't started the next cycle yet, so he is due, that's probably why he got the memo, was he is due to make a decision on that, that anyone could, and this is what all of this has in common. We take a look at this footage that we put up, and we take a look at him talking about nobody expected and what is NATO going to do for us. Everything here is a business decision. There aren't human lives behind any of this. None of the Iranians are human. None of the consumers are human. Think about this for a second.
But the fact is that the U.S. economy is fundamentally sound.
Untrue, by the way. The tariffs have caused considerable disaster, and we are looming on the edge of recession. So he just lied, and he knows it. There's no way he does not know this.
And that if it were to be extended, it wouldn't really disrupt the U.S. economy very much at all. It would hurt consumers, and we'd have to think about, if that continued, what we would have to do about that. But that's like really the last of our concerns right now, because we're very confident that this thing is going ahead of schedule.
It's not human beings. Even consumers is just looking at people in economic terms, which to some degree I get. That's his job. But the reality is this entire administration looks at budget cuts in terms of figures that don't even mean anything. None of the Doge cuts ended up having, and the depositions from the Doge boys got an acknowledgement of this, which was none of the Doge cuts ended up in any actual change in the deficit. None of them. And when you take a look at all the other, that's why I put this up, because we found other ways to spend the money, including starting a war. And I think, as Andrew, you had pointed this out very early on when we first started doing the show together, which is, it's not that Republicans really want to a smaller government or spend less money. They just want to spend it on other things, usually the military. But
yeah, that's why I'm disenfranchised with the Republican Party even before Trump.
Yep.
You know, it's because it's like, well, Republicans are better for you personally because, you know, they're tax cuts. And I'm like, okay, but they're not better for the country as a whole. The government is already spending too much money, and they're just making it up. They're essentially printing. It's now digital. They don't literally fire up printing presses and print $100 bills, although that has happened. But today it's, you know, they just add some zeros here, they move some ledger numbers over there, and voila, now they've just injected, you know, $320 billion into the economy by giving it to certain banks to loan out for certain. I mean, it gets pretty complicated, and go ahead, try following the, you know, the cash flow of where all these numbers are actually going and what they're going for and what they're doing with them. But the truth of the matter is the government doesn't have this money. They're borrowing. They're selling debt to other countries and to private holders. It's like that's one of my problems with our fiscal policy and monetary policy is it's unsound. It's like we don't have this money. We're borrowing it, and the debt goes up. And I still have yet to have a modern monetary theorist explain to me how that doesn't matter. You know, adequately explain to me where I can
let's adequately. I've had a lot of them explain it, but I'm just like, wait a minute. So if I take one and add another one, I get 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's like, well, wait. You know, it's like, well, if you have $1 billion in this account, and you just add another 0 to it, so now you have 10 billion, or better yet, let's just add 3 zeros to it. So now there's $1 trillion in there. It doesn't matter. They're just numbers. So we owe money too. Well, ourselves. And it's like, wait, this isn't how any of this works. And you know, while I agreed with the behind Doge. Its application and execution really kind of sucked, and I was very disappointed in that because there really needed to be a genuine examination of what the U.S. actually spends money on. And and I've always maintained, okay, great, Republicans are going to cut your taxes, which makes the problem worse, by the way, because the government's still spending the money, so that just means deficits go up even faster. You know, the national debt goes up even faster. You know, Democrats say, oh well, we want to raise taxes and spend more money. So it's okay, great. Well, you're going to tax me more, but you want to implement several other social programs, which may or may not be of overall benefit to the country as a whole. I don't deny that there's definitely going to be people that benefit. But we need to be able to balance kind of that with what we're extracting for what we're actually going to get. And we don't have any of that in the federal government. And honestly, what's going to end up happening, you're going to have to raise taxes and you're going to have to dramatically cut spending. It's why I'm always like, we need to pass a constitutional amendment that stops the government from borrowing money, except in very specific cases that are very restricted and very clear on when they can do it and for how long and for how much, so that when the American people actually bear the cost of the things that the government is doing, they may wake up and say, no, screw you, we're not doing this anymore. Absolutely not. We can't afford this anymore. That's one of the reasons why I'm like, why are we doing this in Iran? War is not cheap. Those missiles cost a lot of money. I watched a case of Hellfire missiles get dumped into the ocean because of an issue we were doing vertical replenishment. It was being lifted up by a helicopter, taken over the aircraft carrier. They got a bad wash and the helicopter started to become unstable. They dropped it in there. And it's like, oh, well, there just went $3.2 million. $3.2 million for that crate. Just boom, into the ocean. This stuff is not cheap, and we don't have the money. I mean, literally, the government doesn't have the money.
Yep.
They're borrowing it. And it pisses me off because all of the stuff that we're trying to do around the world, I've always said that my weak spot is foreign policy, for the United States foreign policy. I've gotten a few audiobooks to try and wade into it. And I've come to the conclusion, just after listening to 2 audiobooks, that foreign policy is staggeringly complicated and vast, and the things that we get for what we spend. And I can't keep track of it all. It is like it's mind-boggling to me, just what everything everything that the government spends its money on. It's like it's hard to even express. It's like I'm trying to come up with the words to figure out exactly how complicated all of this stuff is, and we don't have the money for it. And so, yeah, let's just go start a war.
Yeah.
That pisses me off to no end. It's like the United States is not in any kind of economic, fiscal, or monetary position to just be blowing money like this.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm particularly angry about that.
So that brings us to the final story I wanted to talk about tonight, which is Cuba. Trump said
something else that pisses me off.
Yeah, Trump said, "quote all my life I've been hearing about United States and Cuba. When will the United States have the honor of taking Cuba? That's a big honor." And yes, we've been upset with Cuba for a very long time. It came. The biggest reason is because Cuba is so close to the U.S., and it came to a head when the Soviets started putting nuclear weapons in Cuba that could hit the United States as first strike weapons before we could retaliate. Cuba's close enough to do that. It's short of Mexico, who we're close enough an ally with, and Cuba we thought we could become an ally with when we funded a rebel by the name of Fidel Castro and helped him overthrow the government and take power. And then he was like, "I like the Soviets better than I like you." So it's been rough. We've a rough relationship with Cuba. It got better what?
It was a blot on our otherwise perfect tampering and regime change in foreign governments.
We are so good at regime change. It's like we are the best at regime change. Nobody changes regimes.
Does it better.
It's like changing diapers. We're just like, oh, the shit just flies everywhere when we do it. Trump said in remarks from the Oval Office, he added, taking Cuba in some form, taking Cuba, I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I can do anything I want with it. This, again, the transactional nature. He's talking about people. It's not the land, it's the people. I can do whatever I want with Cuba. I mean, how void of dignity.
It's like he's playing Risk. Did you ever play Risk?
No, I've never actually played it. I can recognize it. I've seen people play it.
I mean, we're little plastic figurines on a cardboard, laminated cardboard playing field, and we'll just stack these things up here, and okay, we'll just move this. Hey, we can take this. Hey, 51st state. Well, hey, Canada, don't worry, you're not going to be the 51st state anymore because apparently now Cuba's going to be, I guess. What the hell are we doing? It's like, and that's one of the reasons, because of all of the different damn shit that's going on with Trump and his foreign policy. It's like there's a humanitarian crisis going on, and the people of Cuba, who are already very downtrodden and oppressed, so much so that they'll literally get on a freaking door to float the 90 miles and hope that they get to Florida to try and escape that place. It's like we had a family that works for our company, and they're from Cuba, and it started with their eldest son getting over here. He actually immigrated. That's a side topic. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yep.
He came here legally, started getting set up, started slowly bringing his family over, and he was one of the biggest advocates for the U.S. actually getting involved in Cuba, because they're like, you guys created this mess. You need to fix this mess. The living conditions are terrible. People live in poverty. It's like, it is not a good situation. And so I got to learn quite a bit about just what it's like to live in Cuba from him. And very, very nice people, the best people. They should come over, visit, say hi. It's a horrible situation. No electricity. The grid has gone down. They have no energy anymore. They can't do anything anymore. They can't produce enough of their own food. I mean, this is like the prepper's worst nightmare. What they think's going to happen. Now you're stuck on this island, and where are you going to go? And no plan whatsoever for this. It's their fault. They'll just die, I guess.
And neither Trump nor Rubio. Trump is like, I'll send Rubio there in a couple of days. Their power grid is gone. They've managed to restore very small elements of it. They managed to get power up for about 50% of Havana, but that represents only 5% of the entire country, and they don't think they can keep that up. That's only for 4 hours a night, and they can't keep that up. Somewhere they've got some oil or fuel that they can run generators with, and they got power up a little bit in one place. Right now, Cuba is in a state of collapse. They have said that they're willing to negotiate with Donald Trump, but they're not willing to just hand the entire country over. They're not and America did cause this problem, and it's essentially, I mean, we blockaded them, which is an act of war, so we're essentially at war with Cuba, and they don't want a unconditional surrender where they end up like Venezuela, a vassal of the United States. Having said that, right now, the U.S. has no plan for dealing with the influx of refugees, which we're going to see, because if it's starved to death or, like you said, get on a door and try to paddle it 90 miles to Florida, what do you think they're going to do? We have no plan for this. Now, Trump knew this was going to happen and said we were going to come up with a plan. It was another one of these concepts of a plan. But I think he was thinking Iran was going to take 2 or 3 days, then it'd focus on Cuba. And if that's what he thought, then he probably actually had the timeline of the collapse of Cuba about right. And he was going to deal with Cuba immediately after Iran. The problem is, as it turns out, Iran actually fights back. And that nobody in this administration, for reasons I can't fathom, were not prepared for. So now he's like, well, I'll figure out whether I want to take Cuba or just work with them. And they are dying. The UN has said that 88% of Cubans live not below the poverty level, below the extreme poverty level. 88%. Power is gone. Food is dwindling. The island is in crisis right now. There is one speckle of temporary hope, which is a Shadow Fleet tanker appears to be on its way to Cuba right now. If that's true, and it's confirmed that there's a tanker that appears to be headed towards it. We don't know for a fact that they're headed towards it, but that's what it appears to be. If it is, it looks like Russia is sending them an oil tanker. Whether that's gratis or not, I don't know. But once again, it puts Russia like almost being, it's going to have to be gratis because they can't pay for it. Their currency is worthless. But it's like, oh my God, a country is actually willing to do something, and it looks like it's Russia. So that would offer them at least a reprieve on the energy side. In terms of actually getting food, no, but energy's a start. So we're going to keep an eye on that tanker. We're going to keep an eye on what happens in Cuba, but it's a country that is in the process of failing, and Trump is, it's just like, well, I could take it. I may, whether I free it or take it, I can do what I want with it, which is, you know what? I'd actually put up with that if he decided and went in and did something, even if it's to just say, we're going to subjugate all of these people. If they're alive, we'll worry about the horribleness of what he's doing, but he has to do something now because they're not going to live very long if he doesn't. And Russia's the country that's stepping up to the plate. Holy fuck. What kind of world are we living in? What?
And Cuba's in this position because they didn't do what the United States wanted them to do.
Yeah.
And so the United States caused this problem.
Yes. We not only embargoed against them, we killed off their main supply, their main source of oil. Over 90% of their oil came from Venezuela. As soon as we took Venezuela, we said, you're not giving them oil anymore. Oil stopped. Then we said anybody who trades anything with Cuba gets a 20% tariff immediately. And since Donald Trump seems to really like tariffs and is serious about those tariffs, everybody stopped trading with Cuba. No trade. That's it. The country is where he wanted it to be. He's just been preoccupied with the war, which he mostly did because Benjamin Netanyahu was interested. It has compromat on him, and it's anything is better than talking about the Epstein files. What were you going to say?
Multitasking does not seem to be a strength of the Trump administration.
No, it doesn't. Well, neither does tasking in general.
True.
He seems to have an issue with tasking.
Well, I mean, if you can't task effectively, I guess you can't really expect multitasking.
Yep. So, all right. So that's where things currently stand. Cuba is collapsing, and there is a tanker that appears to be on its way. It's from the Shadow Fleet. Nobody knows the country of origin. It would likely be Russia. It would likely be one of the Russian ones that they can't sell. Sending it there actually is probably better than just hanging on to it, and then they can refuel. And if this 30-day waiver, oh my God, their economy is on the brink in Russia, and Trump is throwing them a lifeline with a 30-day waiver, which he will probably just renew and or just not bother once the 30 days is up, not bother enforcing the sanctions again. This is going to allow India and other countries to trade with Russia, and is going to give them between $8 and $12 billion this month alone, and more once they can start ramping up production again. Meanwhile, the war is... just so that we are all clear and up to date on, let me get my map out. So this is, as of yesterday, the live tracker of U.S. and Israeli casualties. 13 U.S. military killed, 140 to 150 injured. We actually now believe that the number of injured is significantly higher, but that the it's not being reported. Meanwhile, this is how it's affecting all of these countries, which, as we know, Donald Trump was really shocked that was going to happen. So. And then Hegseth, I'm going to play this one again just because, I'm sorry, it's the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen.
The only thing prohibiting transit in the Straits right now is Iran shooting at shipping. It is open for transit should Iran not do that. Now, there's a reason why we chose, as one of our primary objectives, destroy the Navy. We understood the ability to interdict shipping is something Iran has done for 40 years. It's key terrain. They've used it as leverage. The world is seeing what they'll do to fight back in that context. And so
they've already said what they're going to do. Oh my God. They told everybody. They were quite open about this. They were very clear. They were clear in the hopes that somebody was listening and would say, oh, maybe this is a bad idea.
I mean, it's clear. Yeah. It's clear. Somebody's shooting at me. I don't think I want to go through there.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we go?
It brings to mind a song, and I didn't think I would have to go all the way back to Smash Mouth, but it's like, my world's on fire. How about yours? Some people like it, and they never get bored. A little bit of a butchering of the lyric there.
Yeah. That's well, when times get boring, that's idle hands are the devil's playground. I get bored, and that's either when I get myself into trouble, or I'm just like, can't something happen that we can talk about on the show? Not a war in Iran. What the fuck? Are you crazy? We had enough to deal with the war in Ukraine. Now, actually, the war in Iran is not the problem. It's Trump in the White House that's the damn problem. It's a compromised president who's owned by Putin and Netanyahu, and is doing basically whatever they tell him to do when he's not busy screwing up other things and giving all his buddies heart transplants so that they can vote the way he wants them to. And I'm very curious. What's his name? Sean Hannity. Not Sean Hannity. Hannity. That's interesting. I don't think he knows what the CIA is interested in him for. And if the CIA
Tucker Carlson.
Oh, yeah, thank you. You're right. It's not Hannity. It's Carlson. How did I? Yeah. How did I?
You had to get far enough for me to know what you were talking about. It's like, no, that was Tucker Carlson.
Carlson, yep. I think he's in trouble for being a Russian asset. I think that's what he's in trouble for. He doesn't know. He knows the CIA's got something on him. They've been reading his texts, but his texts haven't just been with the Iranians. It's too soon for this to be about Iran. And if the CIA was onto him, whatever they had was done warrantlessly. In order for them to do a criminal referral, they have to have gotten some evidence somewhere that they can get a warrant on. Otherwise, the DOJ wouldn't be able to prosecute him. Or they could try, but he's going to have good lawyers, and they're going to say, Your Honor, there was no warrant. Okay, done. So a warrant is going to have to be there somewhere from somebody, and for that to have generated interest from the CIA, and it have gotten to the point where they feel that he can be charged criminally by the DOJ, I'm betting it's Russia. Those investigations take years. It's got to be Russia. It's not that they were reading his text with Iranians. Nope. It's Russia. That's my guess. That's what I'm going to say. I'm interested in looking forward to seeing it. So any final thoughts before we go?
Just the world's on fire.
Oh, yep. There you go. So I had a thought. And I started with this, which is, a lot of people, and we had Theo on a while back. He's a Brit, and said, "Are you pissed at the U.S.?" He goes, "No, we understand it's the administration." But I think more and more, they're recognizing that, well, at least 50% of the people voted for this guy after seeing him the first time, and the U.S. is now actively attacking NATO, insulting NATO, going against the best interests of NATO, and then demanding that NATO come along and help them dismantle the stability that NATO and the EU have been trying to build for decades. And it's hard. It is hard building a stable continent. It is really hard. And the U.S. is destabilizing all of them very rapidly. So if I was in any of those countries, I have to believe, I don't know what it would feel like, but I have to believe it would be kind of terrifying because the U.S. has turned into a rabid dog that's biting all of the people who try to feed it and licking all the people that have guns and knives. And then just turning, it's crazy. It's just, nobody knows what it's going to do. And it likes it that way. So I have to believe it's pretty scary. As an American, the world is very scary. 50% of my brethren voted for this shit. And I don't think they understood it was going to get this bad, but half of them still don't understand how bad it is. The other half understand his poll numbers are really fucking low, but not enough to call for an impeachment. Not enough to support an impeachment, not enough to say we will actually recall our congressman if they don't impeach him. He's insane. He's unhinged. And the people who see that are now stuck in a position where it's like, and there's, so I just seen this one too, which was so, you go up to a historian and you say, what was the name for those guys that didn't want to see Jews murdered? They were in Germany. They were part of the government, but they weren't part of the actually incinerating Jews. What did you call them? Nazis. Ah, okay. No, but I mean, like, what did you call the ones who morally objected and in fact made an effort to go and work in other areas and to not support the murdering of Jews? What did they call them? Nazis. No, I'm talking about like the ones maybe didn't even work at any of the government offices, didn't support the administration, and in fact just sort of did nothing and just Nazis. Sorry. So, we're all sitting here and we've had talk of civil war time and time again, and the talk is getting more and more serious. And we had said that these midterm elections, if the Democrats lose, these may be the last elections in the United States ever and that what ends up happening is some kind of either civil war, we break up into three smaller, who the hell knows. But Trump isn't going to permit, if he gets a sweep of Congress again, and he knows this is why he's trying to rig the midterms. So I'm scared, because I'm realizing that this election cycle may be our last one. And there are people, in some cases the same people who said, oh, Trump will never win again, who are laughing their heads off saying that I'm a conspiracy theorist. And I'm just like, no, I am watching reality. I'm seeing what these people are saying and doing and who they're attacking and what's going on in the world. And my country is a huge part of the problem. It is the problem right now. And nobody knows how to address it. And voting is the only solution we've got. And it looks like Trump's trying to take that away from us. What's going to happen if and when that works? So I'm scared. I think a lot of Americans are scared. And it's expressing itself very differently for everybody. But J.R.R. Tolkien wrote a thing that I enjoyed very much when the fellowship is in the mines of Moria, in the darkest dungeon and trying to find their way. And Frodo has this ring, which is the most powerful weapon ever made, in the hands of this tiny little guy who really shouldn't be anywhere near anything like it. And if they don't find a way to deal with it, they're all going to get wiped out. All the good things of the world will be destroyed. And he says to Gandalf, he says, I wish this need not have happened in my time. And Gandalf replies, so do all who live in such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. I will be on Greg Terry's tomorrow, 4 p.m. Thank you all for joining us, and have a good night.